Hey, if you're enjoying the content but haven't yet subscribed, take a minute to hit that subscribe button. Join us. Thank you. Well, how do you do? It's Comic Artist Pro Secrets, and my name is Ethan Van Sciver, 26-year veteran of the comic book industry, world's most charming, elegant, eloquent, and yet humble man. Great big Star Wars fan, trusted member of the media. Oh, by the way, before we get started with the video, I want to let you guys know Cyberfrog and Vampirella, the exclusive variant cover, is available for just 2 more days. The link is in the description. You can get any one of these wonderful 3 versions of the cover, or you can just get a nice lithograph. It's 11 by 24, beautiful 100-pound stock paper. You will love it. Check out the link below, and thanks very much. Now on to our main story, everyone. And why do I have to come to Bleeding Cool? Bleeding Cool is such garbage. My iPad is getting sick. My iPad is coughing right now. It's coughing up blood just because of this nonsense. All right, so we've got a big thing that just happened. Sina Grace. Sina Grace is a gay man, and he was given a writing job writing Iceman at Marvel because Iceman is now gay, and that is new. And when I say that's new, I mean that, like, hey, the character's been around since 1963, and I seem to remember Bobby Drake hanging out with a lot of chicks, having interest in women, but hey, maybe he was in denial for 50 years. I don't really know. I'm not sure why that happened. Some people say that it was because Jean Grey, who was a telepath, told him he was gay, and suddenly he decided he was gay. That makes perfect sense to me, actually. That sums it all up. But in any case, Marvel continues its streak of identity politics, and that, hey, if we have a gay character, let's say Iceman's gay, and that's fine, we're going to put, of course, the writer has to be gay. Conversely, on the other way of doing this is Christopher Priest is black, and therefore everything that he writes, every character that he writes has to be black now. It didn't used to be like that. The first Christopher Priest book I ever read was when he was named Jim Owsley, and it was Spider-Man versus Wolverine. Neither of those characters are black, but something happened along the way. Something happened with SJW Marvel. Something happened with this terrible comic book industry that suddenly made it so that you had to be closely tied to the identity of the character that you are writing. So, of course, if Iceman is going to be gay, we need a gay writer. If we have a black character that we want to, or if Christopher Priest is going to write something, he's got to be writing Black Panther, right? I mean, of course. That's just the way it is. It's mental illness. It's awful. I'm sure Sina Grace would kind of agree in a way, I would think. But in any case, Sina Grace did 2 versions of this book. They launched the comic. It was a little. It wasn't great. I mean, I poked through it. I looked at it. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. It just wasn't that good. Sales were low. People just were not interested in reading Iceman as a solo book, and they canceled it. And somehow Marvel decided that, despite the low sales, we're gonna try it again. Same exact creative team, same exact premise, and see how it does. And of course, it resulted in the same problem. Now, Sina Grace, much like Chelsea Kane, who was another person who was hired for identity politics reasons, and given a shot, fails for many different reasons, and then immediately turns around and decides, hey, I'm never going to work for Marvel again, so I'm going to let people know. I like that. I think that's great. Let people know the truth about what happened over there. I did the same thing when I worked at Marvel. I encountered liars. I encountered fraud. I encountered just devious, backstabbing behavior when I worked on New X-Men. I mean, just dishonesty, just flat out lying to your face. So I like it that Chelsea Kane is telling the truth about people like this. And I like it when Sina Grace does too. Good for him. Let's find out what his theory is. This is an article written by Jude Terror. Jude Terror, by the way, is the guy who kind of when I was so naive, when I was very, very naive about what was going on with Comicsgate, Jude Terror told me about the culture war, which to me sounded absurd. He's an SJW. He's fighting the culture war himself. And I said to him, why do people care so much about Aubrey Sitterson writing G.I. Joe? Why is it so important to liberals and left-wingers who I've come to understand were actually SJWs. That Aubrey Sitterson, who was a socialist, right, G.I. Joe, and Jude Terra and I, we have decent conversations. I mean, he's a, he is, I don't know if he's an SJW. He's definitely a leftist, but he's able to talk to people who disagree with him, which to me, is a big evolutionary step for a left winger. And he said it's the culture war. It's the culture war. It's important. It literally, he's actually telling me. It's not about paranoia. It's not about what I suspect. It's not. Jude Terra actually told me, he said it is 100% the culture war, and that was an eye-opening thing for me to understand. Socialists had grabbed G.I. Joe. Think about it. That's kind of an important thing. G.I. Joe, the American military, a real American hero. These guys create icons for young boys to look up to, and it had been claimed by socialists. And so Aubrey Sitterson losing his job was a big deal. It was a big deal to these people. So, as it has been documented in various Bleeding Cool articles throughout the course of the book's two series, same writer, same exact thing, like we said, written by Sina Grace, and drawn in its first. By the way, with Bleeding Cool, just expect lots and lots of garbage tier. Like they do not even bother editing these articles. They don't. There's no reason to. It's the equivalent of like fish wrapping paper in the 1800s. This is just absolute trash. Drawn its first volume by Alessandro Vitti and Robert Gill, and then its second and concluding one-shot by Nathan Stockman. The book breathed new life into a character who it could be argued hadn't really received significant character development since his days in X Factor in the 1980s. The best Iceman ever was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It showed how he became Iceman. He trapped himself in an ice block and somehow punched his way out of it covered in ice. I don't know how he moved his arms. That always perplexed me as a kid. If you're trapped in an ice block, how do you move your arms within the ice block to be able to punch your way out of it? Seems like you trapped yourself at that point. It's true. It's true that it was. Are we calling Brian Bendis the Great One? No, I'm not. No. I'm not going along with this. We are not calling Brian Michael Bendis the Great One. He is not. He is not. He could not have possibly have created the Honeymooners. There's no way. The Great One. That's a sacred designation. Who wrote Iceman, added by Jean Grey's Invasive Telepathy. But it was Grace who wrote Adult Iceman, coming to grips with this and learning to be himself and to love himself. Alongside, of course, lots of mutant action and drama. The book ended too soon when it was really getting going, in Jude Terra's humble opinion. This cover doesn't look bad at all. What is with Leather Boy Colossus here? What is with the motorcycle, the handlebar mustache here? What is going on? With all that in mind, it's sad but not surprising to read Sina Grace's comments posted to his Tumblr. So you know what? Let's get the heck out of Bleeding Cool. Let's go straight to Tumblr because Bleeding Cool is going to be garbage. So this is Sina Grace here. He's tired. He wants a nap. Or I don't know. What is this? What is this? What are we doing here? In any case, as Pride Month comes to a close, he says, it's time I spoke candidly about my experience at Marvel Comics. Love it. Great idea. Great idea, Mr. Grace. To date, I've always been honest about the joy of writing Iceman's journey as an out gay superhero, but I've skirted around the challenges that came along with it. This is partially because I prefer to give off an upbeat vibe, says Sina. There's also a fear that my truth will affect my career. As we've said all along, you do have to kind of keep your mouth shut in this industry. It is important. In other words, you can go off about your left-wing politics, but you cannot openly criticize the people who are employing you. You can't let people know when there's actual devious stuff going on. We just got through this whole thing with Oni and bisexual lighting and murder and that character, that person, and they're completely bogus complaints. They're completely bogus outing of the bad behavior of their employers, which was not bad behavior at all. Now, Sina Grace actually does have some stuff to say, and he can't really say it because you can't truthfully criticize what goes on over at Marvel Comics if you don't want to be blacklisted. With more corporations patting themselves on the back for profit-led partnerships wherein celebrities take selfies in rainbow apparel with Fuzz, that Marvel Studios is preparing to debut their first gay character in the upcoming Eternals movie, there is an urgency to discuss the realities of creating queer pop culture in a hostile or ambivalent environment. Stand by your people. This is interesting right here. Stand by your people. It's no surprise that I got the attention of trolls and irate fans for taking on this job. Yeah, but Sina, honestly, if it wasn't you, it would have been somebody else. Nobody felt like Bobby Drake was gay. That was a surprise to people. People didn't like that. It seemed like it seemed like a reboot. It didn't seem like it was the Bobby Drake that they all knew. It didn't seem like it was done for any other reason except to add a diverse character, a gay character to Marvel's lineup without having to bother trying to create something new. And I mean, that's a challenge. Creating something new that lasts is a challenge. It isn't easy. I mean, Stan Lee was able to do it, of course. I mean, Stan Lee did it multiple thousands of times. I mean, he created lots of characters that everybody still love and remember, and not too many other people are able to do it. That's why they kind of take the shortcut of ruining somebody else's character and making it about something that the character was never about, or they'll just kill the character and replace the character. These are things that we've seen happen over the past 5 years, and it's just caused heartbreak. It's caused real problems for people who have invested so much of their time and money in these comics, so much of their life. All right, so he says there's already backlash around the manner in which Bobby Drake, aka Iceman, came out. Yes, there is. It was really weird. And Marvel needed to smooth that landing and put a so what to the decision. After a point, I could almost laugh off people making light of my death, saying that they have cancerous AIDS from my book, or insinuating that I'm capable of sexual assault. Almost. What does that mean? Between Iceman's cancellation and its subsequent revival, Marvel reached out and said they noticed threatening behavior on my Twitter account, only after asking me to send proof of all the nasty S-word popping up online. An editor called. These conversations always happen over the phone. Dude, I have to say, even though I disagree with Sina Grace in a lot of ways, he went through a lot of what I went through. Honestly, this all sounds familiar to me. This is the way it goes down. All right, this is what they do. An editor called with these, and he offered to provide tips and tricks to deal with cyberbullying. Yeah, the tips and tricks that I was offered were get off of social media, take down your YouTube account, take down your Twitter account, and just disappear and see what happens. Tips and tricks, I would be interested in that. Like maybe muting people, mass blocking. Wait a second. Is Marvel Comics... Are editors at Marvel Comics responsible for blockchains? Are they telling their own professionals to blockchain their customers? Is that what he's saying here? A lot of times you have to read between the lines. Tips and tricks to deal with cyberbullying. That sounds like a blockchain to me. That doesn't sound like here's a clever, witty thing to say. Slato Blocktavius might have an excuse. He might have been told to do that by Marvel Comics. Interesting. I cut him off. All he was going to do was tell me how to fend for myself. I needed Marvel to stand by me with more work opportunities to show the trolls that I was more than a diversity hire. Sina, you were a diversity hire. And the reason why you were a diversity hire is because the book that you were doing was a character who was suddenly gay. And you are gay. So, I mean, it's the same thing that Christopher Priest sussed out. Christopher Priest... He said, look, in an interview, he said, why am I only being given black characters? Why? For my whole career, I've been writing white characters. I've been writing females. I've been writing all different types of people, and nobody ever had a problem with it before until now. What's going on? And Christopher Priest actually backed away. And I think, taking on a book like Vampirella over at Dynamite and bringing that book to 130,000, copies sold with the first issue, it's just proof that standing up to identity politics could lead to something good. Sina Grace should have said, you know what, this character is gay. I am not going to write a gay character because people are going to think that I am being hired for reasons of my identity rather than my talent. So while I would love to work for Marvel Comics, put me on I would say if it was DC, put me on Lobo. I don't know. Put me on the most toxically masculine character that there is. Someone who's very, very heterosexual. And let me just show you that I can write anything. So, I mean, him saying, I need Marvel to stand by me with more work opportunities to show the trolls I was more than a diversity hire, will keep you in mind, says, this is what Marvel said to him, we'll keep you in mind. In other words, what are you kidding me? You are a diversity hire. And if you weren't, you would be writing other books, all right? He's like, I got so tired of that sentence. It should have been a wake-up call for you. Even after a year of the new editor-in-chief saying I was talented and needed to be on a book that wasn't the gay character, C.B. Sobolski, thank you. The only assignment I got outside of Iceman was 6 pages long, about a version of Wolverine where he had diamond claws. Fabulous, yes. Heterosexual, yes. Still kind of the gay character, though. I told you that. I told you Wolverine was gay. I've been saying that for years, and people thought I was kidding. We as creators are strongly encouraged to build a platform on social media and use it to promote work-for-hire projects owned by massive corporations. See, this is why Comicsgate is just so important, and this is why they're afraid of Comicsgate. And I'm not talking about Sina Grace. Sina Grace is afraid of Comicsgate because Sina Grace believes all the hype about Comicsgate, and he believes, all of the trash that people say about it. But essentially, what Comicsgate is it's a way to teach people how to market and sell their own comics. That's what it has come down to. There's the whole system of rules that we have about your the standards that you should hold for yourselves. But that's what it's about, because of course, why would you be using your social media platform? I mean, ultimately that's what you need to do. But why are you wasting your time and energy selling corporate-owned characters? And you do need to do it. If you're working for Marvel and DC, it's your obligation to promote your projects because that's what the fans want. But why? Why? If you have a big Twitter following, if you have a big YouTube subscriber base, why wouldn't you be using it to sell your own material? So he's kind of getting, look at this. He's kind of getting there a little bit here. And then he goes, when the going gets tough, these dudes get going really quick. Yes, they do. DC was not willing to stand up for me either and say, Ethan's not a Nazi. We've known him for 20 years. He's a good guy. No, they're not willing to do that. They have their interests first. They're not going to stand up for Sina Grace. They're not going to stand up for Chelsea Kane. They're not going to stand up for you. When it comes down to it, they will put you in a position where you have to advocate for your identity via the comic book that you're doing, because of the comic book that you're doing, rather than discuss your talent as a writer. And then once you get flack for doing that, they are going to flee. So Sina, I hope you're picking that up. It seems like you are. He says, you may be asking if my Iceman book was any good, or if I'm just being sour grapes over the bad work experience. Believe me, I've asked that too. From the get-go, my first editor asserted that my Iceman would be DOA if it were, quote, too gay, while also telling me to prepare for a cancellation anyway, given that most solo X-Men titles didn't last beyond a year. Never mind that my work on Iceman had gotten positive press in the New York Times. That doesn't matter at all. Let me talk about that for 1 second here. It doesn't matter that you get good press anywhere. It doesn't matter that you go on anybody else's show and promote your comic. It doesn't really matter because most people don't buy comics. Most people, 99.9% of New York Times readers are not buying comic books. And even if they like your comic book idea, even if they're pleased that there's a gay man who's writing a gay Iceman, it's not going to make them go find a comic book store and buy your comic book. It's just, that's not the way it works. You need to market your comic directly to people who are already buying comic books or are predisposed to, or would be interested in it. That's the key to it. You can't just sell to all of humanity. It just doesn't work. There are many people who just will never buy a comic book no matter what, and they all read the New York Times. So hooray that the New York Times was happy about it made them feel good that a gay man was writing gay Iceman. It just doesn't translate to sales, obviously. He says, or that in spite of since deleted critical sandbagging, the series nets glowing reviews on Amazon. Marvel still treated me as someone to be contained, and the book is something to be nervous about. Do you know how hard it is to not argue with the publicist when he's explaining the value of announcing Iceman's revival via the Marvel homepage? Sis, that's a burial. Instead of clapping back, I just went and got myself more press from the New York Times. It didn't work. Sina, people have to listen to me. At some point, people are gonna have to listen. From there, they tightened my leash. I had to get all opportunities pre-approved and all my interviews pre-approved. That would be fine if this was the standard, but I assure you, none of my straight male colleagues seek permission to go on podcasts promoting their books. That's because your book was dangerous, and particularly you on that book was dangerous. Marvel Comics needed to make a very sanitized statement of their support for LGBTQ rights, and you were the puppet that they used to do it, Sina. You were being used. You were being used by these people. So once you got too out of line, once you made too big of an issue of it, once you drew too much attention to yourself and what you were doing, Marvel Comics, of course, had to treat you like what you were, a purse puppy on a leash. I think that phrase came from Diversity in Comics. Do you feel that leash? Yeah, Marvel's on the other end of it. All right. But don't worry about it, because Henry Abrams has C.B. Cebulski on a leash right now. So it's like there's a hierarchy of leashes. What Marvel should have done is assign me a special projects editor. They should have worked with a specialty PR firm. This is a lot, Sina. You're asking a lot. You're asking a lot of Marvel Comics for a book that sells 8,000 copies, rather than repeat a tiresome cycle of treating the book like a square peg and getting confused when it's a hit. I'm not sure it was a hit. Give us a real seat at the table. There was a moment before Iceman was canceled when I wrote the then editor-in-chief Axel Alonso, who was responsible for SJW Marvel. This is the man who's actually responsible for the disaster of SJW Marvel. Pleading for a Hail Mary arc. I explained that Iceman was landing with a newer generation of readers who focused more on binge reading than month-to-month periodicals. You're right about that. The series needed time in the book market before its true strength could be assessed. To Axel's credit, he was warm to the idea and even gave me an extra month. But when he left Marvel, that idea got brushed away. Of course I was right. You were right. The first 2 volumes sold like gangbusters thanks to word of mouth, librarian love. I don't know what this is about selling books to libraries. I think it's sneaky. I think it's sneaky to sell these comic books to libraries. I don't know. It just seems like another outlet to sell to people who aren't necessarily buying or reading. All right. And support from retailers big and small. Am I wrong about that? Let me know in the chat. It's just like, hey, I have an idea. How can we get these books sold in large quantities? First of all, let's liquidate them at 95% off to Ollie's discount outlet, and then let's sell the rest to libraries. Don't you want gay Iceman books in your library? Yeah. How many libraries are there in the country? It's a little sneaky. All right. So when the series returned, no one at Marvel asked me, what do you think landed with the readers? No, they don't have time, and they're not that thoughtful. Nor did they ask the question of Axel that Axel did. What matters to your community? That is something that Axel would ask. Your community. All the gays get together. They belong to a community, and what matters to you? That's all the same. There's a singular answer, of what matters to the gay community. God, SJWs are so weird. So when I wrote what I thought the fans would be into, a story about a man learning to be a better ally in the war against hate, that's me. That's my story. I'm a man learning to be a better ally in the war against hate. Editorial totally missed its value. All right, so Setting the Table Part 2, and this is the end of it. This is actually, it's not so bad. Sina Grace is a pretty good essay writer. I'm enjoying his prose style here. So he says, all the weird drama I put up with criticized when I created a drag queen mutant, first called Shade, now called Dark Veil. I told I told my editor that Shade would be a big deal for X fans and asked how we should promote her. He said, "Leave it up to the reader's interpretation." Everyone at Marvel shrugged off 2 years of goodwill and acted like I'd coordinated behind their backs on an announcement that made headlines. Beyond mentioning on Instagram the queens who inspired the character, I didn't coordinate shit. Of course, their head publicist can't admit that my quotes were pre-approved from an unreleased interview. At this point, I stopped believing that there'd be any more work for me. And that's when you're free, Sina. That's when you're free. You have to make your own work. There were many shady moves on their end. God, you're so right. And I'm still having trouble putting it into language, but it all aligned with an experience I had in retail where a corrupt manager kept lying and moving the goalposts in order to keep me selling in an apartment I didn't want to work in. I offered to give Darkveil a proper character bio, and I walked away. This is 100% aligned with my experience at Marvel Comics as well. You know, except for the drag queen part. You know, that had nothing to do with... Not really, anyway. Not that I know of. I recognize that some of my complaints can be filed under "This is freelance life." No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe some of them, but I think you're onto something here. I'm aware that it was not a queer person of color who joked to me that it's a matter of if Marvel fucks you over. It's not a matter of if Marvel fucks you over. It's a matter of when. That came from a cis white male. The same day turnaround without warning, the work emails on Christmas week, the freelance bullshit. Of course, truly, I don't think of this as discrimination. I call it general ineptness. There's that too. There is that too, Sina. These people do not know what they're doing. It is my belief that if we're telling stories about heroes doing the right thing in the face of adversity, wouldn't the hope be to embody those ideals as individuals? You fucking wish. You wish these people were heroes in any way. These are the most... Comic book people, Sina, are the worst people on the face of the earth. And then SJW comic book people are even worse. These are... I'm sure you've arrived at it already. They are cowards. These are cowards. These are backbiting little weasels. And yeah, I mean, it is astonishing. You wish that they would be heroes. You want them to be. But they're not. You know, they're not heroes. But although they'll say that they are. One thing that they said to me, when they found out I voted for Trump was, how can he draw Green Lantern and vote for Trump? You know, it's like, what does one have to? You know, you guys are not the morality cops. You guys are not the judge of, what is moral and what isn't, what is heroic and what isn't. Certainly not. There isn't anything like that in comics, and if there was, it would be me. I would be the morality police of comics. I would be the one discussing and deciding what was heroic, and I would be the one handing out judgments. But I don't do that, even though I could. Even though I most certainly could. Instead of feeling like I worked with some of the most inspiring and brave people in comics, I was surrounded by cowards. Sina, Papa bless. I like Sina Grace right now. Truly, I hate writing this. In keeping with Pride Month, I am proud of the work I did on Iceman. I love the book. It sucks that I may be tarnishing its legacy by going public about how the cookies were made. That said, the time for self-congratulating is over, and folks should be earnestly listening when they ask, what could we have done better? Sina, I'll tell you just bluntly. You were used by Marvel Comics. Marvel Comics was interested because they thought that it would sell more comic books. And this is what SJWs do. SJWs really believe that identity politics are going to sell product. So they used you. And if you think about it, it's the only thing that makes sense. They didn't need... If you were truly a great writer and they really liked your writing, and they appreciated and respected you, they would have let you write whatever you wanted to write. But they needed you. They needed the headlines. They needed the singular headline that Sina Grace, who is gay, is writing Iceman, who is also gay. So this is a book for the LGBTQ community that we're giving you. So therefore, leave us alone. We are virtue signaling that we care. And that's what you were used for. And when that became complicated, when people saw through that incredibly cynical SJW maneuver, that scheme, and you received the brunt of the criticism for it. Marvel Comics walked away and let you absorb it. And then, when the book got canceled, inevitably for poor sales, because of course it did limit its scope by saying this is a book for gay people. It limited the scope of who was going to buy that book. I don't know why they would do that. Do you? And then they canceled the book and had nothing else for you. So those feelings that you're feeling of confusion and anger and bewilderment, they're going to crystallize eventually if you are a thinking person. And you are going to realize you were used. The phrase purse puppy is absolutely apt. And because of that, Iceman is no more, and neither are you. Great article, wonderful article, and I really want one thing that I'm hoping is that more people who were involved in SJW Marvel come forward as SJW Marvel collapses, which it is. More people who were its victims, who were used by it, should come forward and tell their stories like Sina Grace did. So thanks very much. If you enjoyed this video, let me know. Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Double check and make sure you're still subscribed. YouTube is unsubscribing people. I don't know why, but people are all noticing and letting me know. Thank you for supporting Cyberfrog, Bloodhoney, and Cyberfrog Vampirella. The links are in the description below. And I'll see you again soon with another video. Bye-bye. Hey, I got a P.O. box. Want to send me some mail? Send it to Ethan Van Sciver, P.O. Box 607, Marlton, New Jersey 08053. And I'll probably open it up on a live stream. Thanks very much, everyone. Hello, potential Indiegogo backers. Hello, friends. My name is Ethan Van Sciver. I'm a comic book creator who worked for 20 years for Marvel and DC Comics on books like Green Lantern, Flash, Superman, Batman, and X-Men. But before that, I had a comic book called Cyberfrog. Now, Cyberfrog lasted from 1993 to 1998, and then it stopped when I went to go work for DC Comics. Now I want to tell the story of where Cyberfrog has been for the last 20 years. I want to write, pencil, ink a book called Cyberfrog Bloodhoney that tells the story of gigantic alien hornets that come to Earth and conquer it, sending Cyberfrog into deep hibernation, where he emerges now in the year 2018 into a completely alternate reality, a new world where these hornets have taken over, devastated humanity, using human skin to make gigantic wasp hives, and harvesting human blood to make honey to feed their young. Very few humans still exist, but it's up to Cyberfrog to save what's left of humanity and turn back the damage that's been done by these wasps with his brother Salamandroid and his friend Heather Swain. I want you to help me do this. We're going to get colors by Kyle Ritter. He's a fantastic colorist, and he's going to make this book sing. I'd like this to be a 48-page one-shot prestige format, part 1 of 4. So I'm asking you to help me launch the very first Cyberfrog Bloodhoney epic graphic novel. Are you in? Will you help me? I hope so. Let's get this frog jumping again. If you enjoyed this video and want to become part of this community, subscribe to this channel by clicking the laughing man face logo right on your screen. Ring the bell for notifications as well. You'll never miss a live chat. And stay tuned, another video by Comic Artist Pro Secrets is coming right up.